So in this segment, we're going to be talking about this person from I think it's called the Institute of Economic Affairs, being absolutely eviscerated by Adam Bienkov, and I think that's Ian Dale, I'm going to say. Yes, Ian Dale, absolutely eviscerating this poor lady from the IEA because, she's working for an organisation which doesn't reveal where it's being funded from, and it's one of those right-wing think tanks, which also runs, I think, as an educational charity, which is bizarre because how can a charity be political? It doesn't make sense. But let's watch this.
The size of the state and fund in order to get big tax cuts. That's an agenda that organisations like the Institute for Economic Affairs have been pushing for years, including at Conservative Party conference, where they host a lot of events with ministers and where they boast that Liz Truss has been one of their most regular attendees at.
And that's important because they have the ear of not just the Prime Minister, which is important in itself, but also Tory ministers, Tory MPs and Tory members. So it's very important to know who actually funds this organisation because they have the ear of the major political party in the United Kingdom.
And so I think it does matter who funds these organisations because often people from these organisations appear, quite rightly on programmes like this, and there isn't the question of who is actually funding the positions, funding the research.
Is your accusation with me sitting on this panel that somehow what I am saying is paid for? Because that is
it's not necessarily that what she's saying is paid for. She's not paid to spout these points, but she wouldn't be employed in that job if she didn't have the beliefs that she has.
It's no surprise that someone who believes in free markets in general might wish to work for a think tank that also believes in that. And it's no coincidence that a politician like Liz Truss might be more interested in the Institute of Economic Affairs than she would be with a left-wing think tank. That's how things work. And the reason why we protect the privacy of our donors because places like the Byline Times would go after them. Right?
And they would have every right. The Biden Times would have every right to go after these donors who are, propping up right-wing think tanks that get unlimited speaking times in mainstream media. Just like this is a great example. Biden Times, as far as I know of, they're funded by their readership. That's public. That's people paying between £3 to £10 a month. I pay about £3 a month to them because I think they do great work. It's very public. The people who fund me, it's public. It's YouTube memberships. It's Patreon. It's Google via AdSense. That's where I get funding from to this channel. It's public. Like anyone can find out. But who funds this lady? We don't know.
People are allowed their privacy. It's a right. It's interesting if we look at Byline Times' shareholders. They're not so squeaky clean, are they, either? Max
We're paid for
Mosley,
by our...
is it?
No. We are paid for by our subscribers.
We're
entirely funded by our
actual
subscribers.
fascist.
We're entirely paid for by our subscribers. And people can look at who our shareholders are, and people can, and we put our subscribers on the front of our newspaper. People can't look at the IEA and see who funds them.
They can see a breakdown. They can see a breakdown. Some of our donors.
There's no real breakdown on the website.
Say where they're from.
Misleading listeners by suggesting there is. Nobody can go on your website and see who funds your organisation.
You can see where proportionately the spending comes from, the donations come from.
What does that mean? Proportionally, what does that mean? Can people?
It's kind of embarrassing. You'd think this think tank would prepare their kind of staff to actually be able to answer these sorts of questions because they get asked fairly often.
On your website.
Fundamentally, we protect the privacy of our donors.
So they can't.
They can look at the proportion, and also some of our donors do express that openly.
But you have to understand that if you aren't transparent, and what was the saying, transparency is the best form of disinfectant, if you aren't transparent...
Say sunlight's the best form of disinfectant, I think.
Then, of course, people are going to think the worst, aren't they? They're going to imagine that a fossil fuel company will have paid you to come out with a report which says something that happens to be quite...
It's not necessarily the fossil fuel company will pay, the IEA to come out with a specific report in fossil fuels, but they'll know what the IEA, they'll understand how they work, who their kind of researchers are, who they'd have on payroll, and see, look, are this an organisation which is against climate change, so we can pay them to do a report, and that report will say climate change is a hoax or it's a joke or whatever. That's the way it's kind of done. They get contracts or because of their specific beliefs. That's how it works generally with these think tanks.
Obliging to them. Now, I've had dealings with think tanks on the left and right for probably 30 years, and I genuinely don't believe that sort of thing goes on. That you have paid.
Well, that's against the law.
You have paid for research.
That's not what happens.
No, but don't you see that you're kind of feeding into this narrative that it does happen, and that's people suspect it does?
I would believe that if it weren't for the fact that the accusations that come our way are by people who fundamentally disagree with the ideology or the policy proposals of our think tank.
I think, in my opinion, all think tanks, all of these kind of organisations that are allowed in the media should have to make public who their donors are. That's how it should work, because I think it's ridiculous. If they make money through, advertisement and things like that, that can be, that's fine. But I think if you're receiving donations from people, I even put the freaking, sorry, I shouldn't really use that word, but I even put, the Patreon card up, the donors card up in front of all my videos. So, it's clear who is funding me and to show that I appreciate their support. Why don't the IEA do the same thing? Why don't you come show us who's funding you? I don't know if the IEA are part of the Tufton Street cabal of people who are, have very sus funders and come out with absolute bonkers assessments. I don't know, but yeah, it's honestly madness that these people get away with this stuff. But anyways, let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.